The chairman's turned up, albeit mute.
Thank you very much. Well spotted, Councillor Pinkham. Good evening, everyone. I do apologise for being late. I couldn't find the agenda. And I mean, I don't know whether this is settings on Outlook, but these things get embedded in a string of messages, and then you can't find the original one with the Zoom link. But maybe it was just me.
Yeah.
I apologise anyway. So let's get on with the agenda, shall we?
Why not?
I'll find it. Bear with. So welcome to the. Let me just make this a bit bigger so I can read the blooming thing. Welcome to the Planning Subcommittee meeting for Hertford Town Council. It's Monday the 15th of February. And item 1 is to just check that the meeting is being recorded live on YouTube. Is that correct, Nick?
It is correct, Chairman, yes.
Okay, thank you. And item 2, any apologies for absence?
Chairman, I have the apologies from Councillor Sally Newton, and you may want a quick bulletin. She's had the COVID thing and quite serious symptoms. She's better. Her husband was discharged from hospital after a long stay yesterday, and she's intending to come to one of the 2 meetings this evening, and it looks as if it's the other one.
Fine. I think, Nick, would you note apologies from Councillor Newton? Obviously, bearing in mind that she's recovering from, well, she and her husband are both recovering from COVID. Thank you. Item 3, then, any declarations of interest? Let's have a quick look at Zoom has now decided to minimise. I don't see anyone putting their hands up, so there's no declarations of interest, so we can move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 4, the minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of February. So I'd like to propose those to be an accurate record. Would anyone like to second? Councillor Lynch, thank you for seconding. We'll just take a vote that we're all happy with the minutes for the 1st of February. I believe that was unanimous, Nick. So we'll move on then to item 5 on the agenda, which is matters arising from minutes not dealt with elsewhere. That's paper A. I just really need to check with you, Nick. Are there any additions, updates on paper A?
Chairman, I asked a question to East Council in terms of are there any updates for the Reb Reeds farm, and they confirmed there is nothing new to report. A visit will take place sometime shortly once some restrictions on COVID are lifted in terms of the lockdown. Yeah, thank you.
Did we not invite the district to send someone along to talk to us about what actions are being taken there, or was that not taken up?
Chairman, I didn't have a response specifically on the officers.
Give us an update.
I sent that one too. So we haven't had the offer. Obviously, the invite hasn't been.
Let's await the abatement of COVID and see whether once they've had a meeting, they're able to update us. So we'll move on then to item 6. Any questions and/or statements from members of the public? Nick?
Chairman, none.
None. Okay.
None.
So in that case, we'll move on to the main business of the evening, item 7, which are planning applications. And we'll start with paper B. And the first one is Pimlico House. Oh, this is interesting. So we've seen Pimlico House before. I'm sure everyone's familiar with this one. This is where they want to convert the office space into dwellings, into flats. And they want to remove the condition of providing some of the spare parking spaces for residents during evenings and weekends. Does anyone want to start on this one?
Well, it's obviously, it helps our start. It's obviously an incredibly fraught issue. And having read through all of the ins and outs of this, I can't for the life of me see why we should be in favour of the spaces not being available to the residents. I mean, it just seems to be. It seems to me that there's some sort of devious. I can't understand why people of goodwill would have a problem here. Put it that way. It feels to me like there's something behind this as to why they wouldn't want the spaces to be available.
And I think there is a very detailed objection posted by one of the members of the Residents Association for Pimlico Court, which I think is where these spaces are for the benefit, if you like, of those residents. And I agree with his submission that the case is not made that these spaces are not needed. We all know that there's significant parking congestion in that area, and also on West Street. And for me, the case is not made at all that these spaces aren't being used. Just because a surveyor turns up and doesn't see anything does not, in my mind, confirm or deny whether these spaces are being used. And a residents association use the same parking enforcement company for their spaces. So the idea that that it's justified to remove these this condition is not made for me, and I would object to this application.
Agreed.
Okay, Nick, I don't know, are you able to capture something of that waffle, or do you want me to summarize it? You're on mute, Nick, sorry.
Sorry, Chairman. I could try and capture something, but if you would wish to give me some specific words,
Yeah, I think it's just that. I don't know which individual it was, but the various objections have been uploaded on from neighbours on the planning portal, and the committee is in agreement with those objections. The case is not made that condition 6 should be varied in any way. The area is extremely congested already with parking. We're not satisfied that there is evidence that local residents do not make use of spaces 7.
I mean, I suppose the other thing to say about this, Chair, is it's not at all clear what it is that they want the spaces for. That's what bothers me. I can, they make the point that they're not being used, but so what?
We've considered an application before for residential use of this block, and we've cited lack of parking as one of the reasons why we would be concerned. And I think by removing this condition, it makes those spaces available 24/7, as opposed to at the moment those spaces aren't available to offer to residents who might want to buy one of those converted apartments, or indeed use one of those converted apartments. So by removing this condition, it makes those spaces available, so that it makes it more saleable.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
That's my reading of it. Okay, we'll move on to 12 the Avenue.
Okay.
And those of you who know the Avenue or know this particular plot, I think it's on a corner, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and there's already a boundary wall and fence along there. So really, it just appears to me they're replacing the existing fence and boundary wall with something more substantial. And I personally have no issue with that. I don't know anyone else. Any comments?
I think it may be beneficial to the general environment, Chairman, and of course, we've looked at this drawing many times because of several applications on the site.
Indeed,
some of which were successful and some weren't. But this particular detail, if I can call it that, seems to me to be all right. They've got a long, dull face onto the avenue, onto the drive, but the fence itself is probably one of the better fences and walls that they could produce.
Indeed.
And it's not in a conservation area anyway, so I think they've done quite a good job looking after the public realm.
Yeah. So that's, do we say no objection, or would we like to say more than that? Councillor Ruffles, do you think?
I wouldn't say any more than that.
Okay, so it's a no objection then, Nick. And we'll move on to the subway. So this is, we considered this application at our last meeting. The application we considered at our last meeting had the suffix ADV, which presumably is advertising. And this one has the letters LBC, which I guess is listed building consent.
Yeah.
Nick, is that correct? But it's exactly the same application that we considered on the last occasion, just the listed building consent application. So I think the same comments as we made on the last, we commented that we approved of the painting, although in their graphic image it looked much darker than that grey. So there's also a sort of a computer graphic of what it'll look like.
Yeah,
I think it's superimposed on the photograph or something like that. But yeah, that's the one. But either way, we still feel that the colour scheme is rather garish and out of keeping, in that historic parade. So the same comments will apply, Nick. I don't know whether you're able to see the comments. It was 3/21/0175 on the last meeting.
No problem. Okay, no problem, Chairman. Yeah.
Is everyone happy on that basis?
I mean, I think when I keep looking at this, I think, well, actually, if they just made the lettering a little smaller.
Possibly, yeah. We don't like the green particularly, but there we are. We did.
No.
I mean, I can't say I like the current green either. But clearly, that was before my time.
Yeah, I think that if the lettering, I think it might be worth saying the lettering that the lettering is too large. I think we use that word as well as garish and such like.
Well, I think they'd probably argue it's slightly smaller than what's there now. If you look at the two images,
we weren't asked about what was there now. We asked about this time, and I think we should say that if you compare it with the lettering on the buildings on either side, it's a good deal bigger, and I think that's as significant as anything else.
I'll look. Other members of my committee, we're happy with just to say perhaps a smaller lettering would be more acceptable.
Well, I wouldn't say that last bit actually.
Oh.
I was letting the other people pick the bones out of it, but if we mention the word large, we might get.
We find the lettering to be too large.
Yeah.
Compared with other signage in the area.
Town council, for instance.
Well, quite. TTIC. Okay, we'll move on to Sherwood House, which is Bluecoats Avenue, number 5 Bluecoats Avenue. And I'm sort of quite impressed that they're installing a heat recovery, quite a modern heating and ventilation system into obviously a listed building, which demonstrates it can be done.
Yeah, and I think the gratings that they're proposing are as good as they could be, because they're going for cast iron, black painted, but very similar to what was there before, albeit a little bit bigger. But when you look at the plant proposal, it does seem enormous, and it sticks out beyond the front of the building. I don't know whether you can see.
I thought it was tucked around the side.
Well, it is, but it sticks out. Well,
there's the grating. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah,
I could see that I think there's an elevation for the that's the one, acoustic enclosure or whatever you want to call it.
I think
so the drawing isn't very helpful, because what's showing as pavement in that plan is actually the public pavement opposite Tesco on I think it's Mill Road, isn't it, that road?
Yeah.
There's another
so that's
which shows the fence and a sort of highlighted area to show where the building would the construction would actually be. There's another, it's in green, I think, in the Keep going. Nick.
Yes. Is it?
Nobody can hear me.
It was it bothered me about this, which was this is the way it shows the fence, and it shows the supermarket in the distance, as it were.
Okay.
Perhaps I missed that one. I felt this was, tucked away and relatively.
I agree with all of that. I think it's about as good as it could be, but I'm just a bit worried about the plant, the location of the plant thing. Just like us to also look at it, but if we can find it.
Trying to find that one.
Proposed elevations, was that, we tried that one? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Is that just the front of the building, isn't it?
Highlighted.
Have another look at the block plan.
We highlighted it in green with and it had the supermarket in the. It's on a photograph, and it had
block that.
It might be in the design statement.
Yes.
It might be there. Yeah. Sorry, not to be more precise.
Yeah, I don't seem to have the design statement actually here on my list of ones.
I don't remember seeing that, Councillor Pinkham, but I mean, well done. If it informs our discussion.
If we get to see it.
I
can load it up actually.
I mean, just while we're talking, I mean, it seemed to me that what they were building it out of was okay. Perhaps it's not up to say.
No.
Not the same care has been put into that as has been put into the actual gratings on the building.
But I think they would argue, Councillor Pinkham, that it's in keeping with several other enclosures.
Yeah. Well, we saw that there's pictures of some pretty awful things that have been bolted onto the outside of the buildings as we go around.
Anyone else? Any comments while we're waiting to see this image? I seem to have lost Councillor Lynch.
It was having a lot of trouble with his sound. I know that. Maybe.
Here he comes.
Chairman, the Mill Road end is fenced, isn't it? So
yes, it is.
At Tesco and that cedar tree, I don't think there will be an impact of any importance there visible.
No, it's not the it's not the side. It's just it actually protrudes beyond the building. That's what surprised me. This is a bit I was just a bit.
So you believe? I mean, looking at that blue outline, I suppose you could argue that it is actually protruding slightly. I see what you're saying.
And I don't think that is okay. Actually, I mean, I feel at least we should comment on that. That it would be better if it didn't protrude.
Okay. So, Nick, I think first of all, the committee welcomes the modern heat recovery ventilation system being proposed. Well, they do mention that isn't it part of is it the district plan or whatever to encourage? I'm not sure exactly what the words are.
Yeah, I'm sure the purpose is everyone is agreeing, aren't they? That
and the design of the ventilation grills to mirror the existing cast iron vents. The committee were concerned that the proposed enclosure protrudes beyond the line of the side of the building.
Perhaps unnecessarily so.
Sorry, Councillor Traeger.
Perhaps unnecessarily so. Maybe it could be flush.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's leave that as a concern and let the planners pick up on it, perhaps.
Can anyone hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, Councillor Lynch, welcome back.
That's fine. I haven't got the video. I've got the sound now.
That's fine. And you're able to see the
Yeah,
Nick's
I can see everything else.
screen. Lovely. Okay, welcome back. So I think apart from that, we've raised our concern about it protruding.
I can
I
see that.
think now we can move on to 34 Thieves Lane. Now I'm just slightly worried about this one,
Yeah, me too.
Agreed.
in that I thought there was a garage down the side of this house.
Have you got the picture yet?
There was, I think.
I don't know whether it's still there, but they're proposing to build a side extension down the access. They haven't shown it on the drawing, but at the rear of the property, down the side of the property, is a garage.
Yeah. I mean, I just thought that it's not a particularly elegant building, is it, to have been put up in a conservation area?
No, I think that designation is wrong.
Is it? Yeah. Well, if
Yeah,
It's
these
in,
are modern properties, well, relatively modern properties.
Mm.
yeah, it's in the wrong ward. I mean, just dealing with that little bit in the right-hand column, it I think is a
It's got to
typo
be.
above, isn't it? It's not Castle Warden. It's not a listed building.
It's Seal Ward, surely.
Steel Ward, yeah.
Deal, yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, it's Sue Ward.
Indeed. So I think that's just maybe that got copied down in some way.
But it doesn't make much difference, does it, whether it's Seal Ward or Castle, except we're not dealing with a listed building.
and it's a conservation area, so
Mm.
that's fine.
So, I mean, the buildings themselves aren't particularly noteworthy. However, it is a semi-detached, and this is sort of strapped to the back half of a semi-detached.
Yeah, I suppose it's somewhat offset, isn't it?
Very
Anyone else with observations?
Well, it's ambitious, isn't it, for the
Very.
building? But I can't remember what the orientation was. I did look at it when I was looking at the drawings at the weekend.
We'll have a quick look at the
Yeah.
block or the location planner. Well,
Yeah,
not very helpful, but it's on the bend, isn't it?
Yeah, the top one would serve.
So I would say that the cross hatching is what they're proposing to add. If we just went down, Nick.
Yeah.
So the building's there, but in white. The existing building's in white, and I think this is what they're proposing to add.
It will take sunlight from anything to the north of it, obviously.
It is only single story though.
Yeah.
But my concern is that there's a garage. Well, I believe there's a garage in the rear garden.
Yeah.
And that's the access road.
Yeah.
So they'll cut their own access off. Is that right?
Yeah.
I suppose, could we regret the loss of garage and driveway? Because the extension itself is not out of keeping with the area.
I mean, there's it's paved all the way down, so all they'll do, it actually shows. When I looked, the cars were actually parked where that cross hatching is there's actually parked sort of level with the house,
Yeah.
but it's paved all the way along. So I suppose these cars will just park nose to tail, sort of on their driveway as opposed to level with the house. But yeah, Nick, I suppose we could say that committee are concerned regarding a loss of access to a garage or to the building over the side extension being built over the access to the garage at the rear of the property.
I mean, is there any access to the back garden now?
Well, you'll see there's a slender
Yeah.
walkway, I suppose I'd argue.
Yeah.
Very slender.
Well,
I think they've just tried to get away with it. We'll see. I would think the planners would not be happy with building over the access to your garage like that.
Just to make no comment.
So I think I think that's our main concern, isn't it?
Agree.
yeah, that's fine.
Okay, we'll move on then to Bengio Hall. Well, at the moment they've got some wooden gates and they want to put some wrought iron gates in. So as far as the gates are concerned, I didn't really have an issue.
No.
And the art studio. So at the moment, the old garage that's there is brick built, and they're proposing to put this single-story, flat-roofed, wooden-clad and grey aluminium framed building in its place. So
Not really in keeping, is it? I mean,
that's my summary.
yeah,
Any observations?
yeah.
Well, I would observe that there's a clear, genuine nature for the use of the art studio. The artist, the wife, Mrs. Chamberlain, is a very good artist, very well known locally. So it's not. I don't think it's an application like we sometimes have, where we've taken a rather cynical view of what the games room or the whatever it might be is really intended for. I think this probably is intended for that purpose, but that's for the current occupants, and we're thinking of planning for a greater future, really, with buildings.
It's not. It's not the greatest of building, is it? It's a good studio though, so it's got all that north light.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
it's a box. It's not beautiful.
No, it's
I'm
not.
sure it's probably the most cost-effective way of building a studio. Do we need to comment about its use? It's for the future. Is that what you're concerned about, Councillor Ruffles?
Not really. I don't think we can say it must be an art studio forever. I was just meaning that this application has that genuine feel for it at this point in time.
Yeah. And the design overall?
Well, it's not exciting, is
The
it?
beauty will be inside.
It's not beautiful, but it's a very large plot, obviously.
Yeah.
Who were the people that owned it before, Peter?
I'm sorry.
Well, how far do you want to go back?
Probably in the early 90s.
The Savories were there then.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we accepted a three new garage detached garage building further around, and this old garage was going to be used for gardening storage, but they're now knocking it down for a studio. So is it just an objection then, both to the gates and studio?
Yeah, certainly, yeah.
All right. So then we move on. In fact, there's two applications. Obviously, one is a full application, the other is listed building application. So we then move on to 32 Sandy Close. This is right up in the corner. If those of you know where Sandy Close is, the first turning up the hill from Hertford North Station. And this one's right up in the corner, isn't it?
Very good vantage point for observing steam railway activity
I can imagine it must have a good view.
Before the banks grew up, and when they were all kept, it's now trees, but you had a wonderful view of the station.
Yeah, and of course at the bottom of their garden, I think there's actually the footpath that goes over the railway line.
Yes, yeah.
I looked at this and I didn't think it was the roof line is similar to the house next door. I think what's proposed.
Yeah, they're all going up in that area, and
Well, yeah. So is that a no objection?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Nick. Next is 25 Talbot Street.
It's the front roof lights with this one for me. Anyway.
Fortunately, when you walk along Talbot Street, you'll see that actually, even in that same row of terraces, there are roof lights already.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with the dormer. It's quite restrained, isn't it, on the
I thought so.
back of the house. I still think that we should keep it. When I looked at the interior design, I couldn't for the life of me see why the roof lights were essential. I mean, they do light the staircase, I suppose, but so what? I would still comment that regret the roof.
Yeah, well, yeah. So the committee are concerned about the addition of 2 roof lights on the front elevation of the property.
Though, of course, it's not in the conservation area, this one, is it?
Well, I think it is.
It is in the conservation area.
I think CS.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Pinkham. Yes,
Well,
let's add the phrase in the conservation area. Thank you, Nick.
What does CS mean? It should be CA.
It should be CA.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Then I doubly object to the roof lights.
I'm surprised there's enough height in the roof, having seen the building, even with the dormer. I don't know that,
I think they're going to try and lower the floors. If you have a look at the plans, there's reference to the floor height.
Yeah,
But I believe they've got dormers. I don't know whether it's 19 or 17. Further along in that same block of terraces, they've got rear dormers already.
How expensive to lower the floor?
There's some reference to the flooring in the. If you turn that round, if we could read it.
I'm just.
Just turn your computer around, Nick, Councillor Pinkham.
I do apologise. I can't get one to turn around.
That's fine. Just be a student. Just be a teenager, Rob, and put your head on the desk.
Lie down. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought there was some reference to.
Are we able to zoom in? Well, anyway, it's internal. I don't know. It's really external.
Their problem. Yeah.
Space. Indeed, it is. Yeah. So is that a no objection then?
Yeah. No.
No.
Oh no! I beg your pardon. Sorry, we commented. We commented on the roof lights. You've got that, haven't you, Nick?
Yes, Chairman. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So that's paper B. We now move on to paper C. And we start with the brewers, the 2 brewers, I should say. I couldn't find any documents.
No brewers.
I couldn't find any documents associated with this application, Nick.
No.
So we can't consider it.
But, I've got.
I'm going to ask Councillor Ruffles. He remembers when it was originally 2 properties, presumably.
I have got it. So I did have it actually in the end.
Oh, you have got it.
I have found it. Yes, I was able to actually. Somebody did manage to find it when I asked them.
Okay.
So
the chief interest is the change of use, isn't it? Really, and
yeah,
and then internal alterations, which won't concern us. Sadly, it's one of the last 2 of only 3 ever outlets for Nichols Ales, the brewery in West Street, and they had 3 pubs in the town, all of which were cottages, front rooms converted. This one, Warren Terrace, the Warren House in Benjo, and the White Horse, famously in Castle Street. Those 3, but so this may or may not have been built as a pub, but it's really a cottage front room and little scope for the present day operators to offer the kind of things that pubs are currently offering, by way of garden, for example.
I think
Outdoor space.
I could have to agree. I think I'm not sure what our views are about pubs. I mean, it's I think it's really, we are losing quite a few. We're gaining quite a few bars in the centre, but we're losing quite a few of these more traditional pubs. But there is another one a little further along the road, which is still there, and which is big enough to offer a more substantial offering to the public. And I think this one its time has gone, really.
I've been watching social media reactions to this application.
I have one concern.
And it's mixed, really. Some people, like me, if I'm honest, regretting the change, because just the idea of a room you can walk into and have a pint is socially a very desirable thing, but it won't make probably much money nowadays, and that's why businesses operate in order to give livelihood. And of course there are some who, when this pub has been open recently, and often it hasn't been, did find some disturbance, which probably in the past some of the old boy drinkers
Yeah,
they didn't get, but pub goers seem to change in personality.
yeah. Can I make one point about it's an area of houses. I would much rather it would be one house, one family home, rather than two flats. Because two flats could equal 4 cars.
Yes.
And also, I know it's internal alterations that were not affecting us, but if it's one house, it will be altered internally in a more sympathetic way.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Tony.
Yes, I think that there is an issue. You know, there's a difference between people visiting a public house in terms of, presumably most of them are walking anyway if they're local, and you know, residents needing to park their vehicles outside. And yeah, I mean, we can certainly make the comment that although is it 30 to 32? Does that not imply that originally?
Yeah, that's an interesting little detail, isn't it? You
Yeah.
can see on the top right at the moment, the outlines. If you look at the Port Vale frontage, not the blue bit, but the red bit. Yeah, you could divide that in that direction. They look as if they're wanting to divide it the other way.
Indeed, into George Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we could certainly make the comment that
It's to do with density, isn't it?
Yeah. Certainly, I'm trying to think of the formal words here.
It's an area of houses, family homes, rather than flats, isn't it? That area.
Yes, it would be consistent, Chairman. Some of those in George Street are really quite large properties, the terrace properties there, and certainly the ones opposite.
Okay, so why don't we, say something like the committee would rather see a single property on this site.
Yeah.
Which would be more in keeping with family size property, well,
of the neighbourhood.
Yeah, which would be more in keeping with other properties in this neighbourhood.
Yeah.
But they'll point out that it is 30 and 32.
Yeah, they'll try.
National.
Well, let's make our observations.
Yeah.
And move on.
Am I still muted?
Oh no, Councillor Lynch, we can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, good.
So we're going to move on to number 50 Martin's Drive, up on Foxholes. My observation would be it's a large plot, and the extension is relatively modest. I don't have an issue with it.
No.
Are we happy?
No comment.
There's no objection for 50 Martin's Drive. And then we move on to 58 Fallbridge Rise. This is 2 single-story rear extensions with skylight, bifolding doors, Juliet balcony. Of course, you've got to have a Juliet balcony. And a new window to the first floor on the side elevation. Again, it's a relatively sizable plot, and it's sort of a bit of an infill, really, that one of the single-story extensions. I personally don't have an issue.
No me.
No objection.
Yeah. So again, 58 Fallbridge Rise, and no objection, Nick.
Thank you, Chairman.
We move on to 46 Cowper Crescent. Now, this is an interesting one because it was refused, and the grounds for the refusal was the loss of amenity to number 44 and loss of light and so on. And on this new application, number 44 put in have actually put in a letter of support for this planning application. And it's exactly the same application as was refused last year, but now with a letter of support from the neighbour.
Did we draw attention to the effects on the neighbour, Chairman?
We made no objection.
No, I don't think we did.
So I propose we make no objection again, Nick.
Yeah.
Unless, sorry, anyone else has got anything to add?
Agreed.
So this is no objection to Cowper present then. And now we move on to a more contentious 36 Stansted Road. Demolition of commercial buildings and erection of 4 3-bedroom dwellings. I suppose you'd say it's a terrace of 4 3-bedroom dwellings. So who would like to start on this one?
Well, we need Councillor Lynch, the ward member. Not Councillor Lynch, Councillor Hunt.
Ah, that's true. I will say that we've had there've been a couple of submissions by the ward councillors. I don't know whether people have seen those, objecting to overdevelopment and the real issue with parking. And I have a real issue with parking. So those of you who know this part of the world, across the road, Constable Way, I think it's now called, there's a new development of just, I don't know how many flats are down there, quite a few hundred flats, and parking is really quite quite congested in this area, and the idea of building these properties with insufficient parking just doesn't work for me.
No, they're squeezing too many properties in there, and they need to use a bit more imagination with the site, to be honest, to be more considerate with the neighbours. They need to think again, I think.
Certainly, this would be my view that this represents overdevelopment of the site.
Unless they came back with some new initiative on
And
parking.
very dense, overdevelopment, I suppose, is the word, isn't it? Really, that.
Yes.
Is it worth commenting also that the properties proposed are very small compared to those in this neighbourhood or those along Stansted Road?
They're an extra story, though, aren't they? That's the thing. At least we won't have to worry about dormers because they come with them.
Come ready installed. Yes,
I think
I
this
see what
is
you mean.
overdevelopment, isn't it? I mean,
Still overdevelopment.
yeah.
And insufficient parking in a very congested area.
I think it needs to respect the density of development around it, and it doesn't.
Well, across the road, Constable's Way is not a very good example. As I say, it's at least a couple of hundred flats there. On this side of the road, I'd agree with you, yeah.
I think parking is a very, very high priority.
Yeah, and we've got this
Not sure you're hearing.
tandem parking already being proposed. I don't really know how you get the two vehicles shown on that image. I don't quite know how they get out their spaces.
No.
It's all nonsense, this, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it is an objection, Nick.
Yeah, a strong objection, perhaps. I don't know if you use that word. But
I'm not sure you're hearing me.
Yes, we are, Councillor
You
Lynch.
are, okay.
Are you in agreement that we should object to this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to 34 Villiers Street, which is a single-story ground floor side extension with roof light.
I'm personally, I wasn't very excited about this.
No, what's interesting, there's already existing, I don't know whether that's the front door, but there's already a little roof that, a little part of the building that extends into that alley, if you call it an alley, and all they're doing is extending back along that.
Yeah.
I have no issue with it.
I find it difficult to get excited about.
Yeah, so there's no objection to 34
I mean, it's
Villiers.
not really building up to the building line because there's already a shared access there.
Yeah,
Shared right of way, so no one else will build on that, whatever. So I think it's okay.
indeed. And then 191 Hornsmill Road, ground floor rear extension with skylight. Very similar to that in next door. So again, I couldn't really fault it. I don't know anyone else.
No, I don't find that something I would want us to be objecting to.
Okay, so again, that's a no objection. Nick?
Yes, Chairman.
And we can move back to the agenda then, as we've now looked at planning applications. So then item 8 is just consider paper D, which is the decisions from East Arts Council and Arts County Council. Any observations from anyone on those? And then we've got a licensing application, paper E. This is the BP petrol station up at the A10 next to McDonald's, and they want to extend their licensing in the morning by the looks of it. Currently it's 8 AM and they want to extend it to 7 AM. Does anyone have any observations?
Nope.
Okay, so I think it's no objection, Nick, to that license application.
Thank you, Chairman.
There's nothing else come in since that one that we need to consider?
No, nothing
No. Okay.
else. No, no, Chairman.
Right, thank you. In that case, I've lost my way. Where are we? And street naming is the next one, paper F. So this wasn't on the original agenda, but you issued it, didn't you, Nick? Or did I miss it?
No, it was on the original one. Yeah.
Apologies.
Chairman, it was.
Apologies, I missed
I
it
believe
then, but Councillor Raffles alerted me to it, which is just as well. So this is obviously the new development up on the former Bengio nursery site, off Sachem Road. I don't know whether we could just go to the layout briefly.
Yeah, there you go.
This one here, because it's not really. It strikes me that they've got too many road names. So I don't know whether you're able just to expand it slightly. But I'd like to give an example, just
Zoom
sort
out.
of where it says Road 1 in red.
Zoom in.
Oh, you're going to tell me it says it several places.
It's all the way around, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where it meets Road 6 at its, I'm going to say southern point, but where your marker was at that end, You see, we've got two number ones side by side of the properties, number one and number one, because they've got a road number.
Yeah.
If we could just push this, go down the page a bit. Yeah, road 4 and road 6, I think should be one road. Should just run from the top to the bottom of the development, such that the numbers then would run up. You wouldn't have two number ones side by side. It just seems a bit strange, that, to me. But
I'm not sure that's right. Oh, do you think those? Yeah, I suppose
Yeah.
houses are on which road? It's hard to see.
One's on road 1 and one's on road 6, though.
Road 4.
yeah, I don't know. Well, it just struck me as they seem to be trying to create roads, and road 3 and road 2 could be one road. I didn't see why it needed. But anyway, it's an observation. I don't know whether I'm being
Yeah.
too sensitive about this.
Perhaps we could ask the district council to make sure that the post office, they're the key ones, because they study that kind of thing very carefully, and obviously other people that are delivering also benefit from the numbering system, the ease of looking. We don't want to create another Pinehurst, for example, which is extremely difficult for
It is.
van drivers to go around. But
I think the worst one is actually Temple Fields.
that's
It's a nightmare.
Yes, yeah.
As I do deliver up there.
I wouldn't want to start thinking that aspect for them. Really,
No.
but perhaps it would be worth just asking the district to reassure itself when it approves the numbering that the post office are really happy having two ones next door. It happens in Duncombe Road and Farquhar Street as well, and I know that's an historic one, but that two number ones next door to each other, it does confuse.
Yeah. So Nick, perhaps you could just, as part of our comments, just the committee wanted reassuring that Royal Mail had been consulted regarding the numbering of houses and ease of location for
And you
deliveries.
could mention specifically your example of number one being next to number one.
Yeah. Well, in
Yeah.
fact, there's
Actually-
4 number ones within 10 meters of each other.
Yeah.
But anyway, on to the road names. Is my understanding, Nick, that we're being asked to make a decision for each of the 6 roads on one of the 2 proposed names, or are we in a position to say, well, we don't like any of these names and we'd like to propose our own?
I believe, Chairman, yeah, I believe that I think that these are names that have been put forward by the developer, but I think these are obviously developers' preferred names. If we go back with saying that they don't make sense or there's no.
Yeah. Well, Councillor Ruffles
that's his view.
Councillor Ruffles has done some research into former headmasters or headmistresses of Bengio schools.
Well, no, I mustn't take credit. I got Marilyn Taylor some time ago. I wrote to Marilyn and said sooner or later, Hertford Council, Marilyn's an amateur historian in Bengio, will be asked to suggest road names. I didn't know anything about 6 or anything else. And so I kept a couple of her suggestions waiting for the moment that we were asked, and then caught on the back foot here by unusually the developer getting in first. Her reaction to these names was very dismissive because they're odd ones and not an obvious link, but nevertheless she pointed out 2 or 3 links. She says they've gone back to a much earlier period when Bengio Temple Fields is named after the Benjo Temple and the Knights Templars activities in that area. But these names, Marilyn said she recognized some as coming from that far back era, so they possibly are legitimate. So whatever else we decide tonight, if I don't want to talk too much, Chairman, but if we could also say that should these names, these as suggested by the developer, be adopted, we would like to know the provenance, as it were, of those names. And my simple reason for that is there is a booklet published, I think, 15 years ago or something like that by Harford Museum, which I find useful, where the museum staff have described how each road in Harford, as far as they could go, received its name, what particular link there was there. And so it may be that a museum publication in the future would benefit from knowing whether Beecham Road or Field with an E road, what it meant. And so if we do go down there, I and support those, well, even if we don't, because they will be being considered by East Herts Council, I hope justifications could be made public. But Marilyn's words were that number 6 Road Deeds Drive, he is apparently related to the Abel Smith family, and was a former parish priest, a rector of Benjo, so she recognized that if it's the same deeds. Rook is another name, and now we've got Rook's Alley down off 4th Street. It's the same family, Benjamin Rook, who lived at Revels Hall in Benjo, a century, 2 centuries ago. So there's a sort of thing on Rook that Marilyn's picked up. But Chelsin in 2.3, and Nick has pointed out, is too similar to Chelsing House elsewhere, and that's beyond Tunnel, the name Chelsin, the village of or hamlet of Tunnel, which is in the ecclesiastical parish of Benjo, but not in Harford.
Right.
So the one name that Marilyn is really keen on isn't one that I guess the developer may quickly grab, like the one we found in the end for the John of Gaunt quarter. There's a chap called Wormald who was the surgeon in 1850, 1860, that sort of period, at Bart's Hospital in London, and he lived in what was called Benjo Cottage, where Benjo Mews is currently. But the great thing that he did for Benjo was to offer consultations, advice to the poor. I've seen an advertisement where he actually got so many people wanting this advice that he had to restrict it to having a recommendation from a medical practitioner locally. But he was a top medical man looking at providing a free service, and he did so from this site or thereabouts. So Mr. Wormald, Thomas Wormald, Wormald, was doctor at one point, but presumably Mr. when he became a surgeon, was the sort of name that she would love to have.
Well, should we propose Woolmold House?
Yes.
A block of flats?
Yeah. And the other land use, which is a bit thin, is that Benjo Cottage Gardeners had early shows on that site, tented, and so Benjo Gardens or something like that just kind of might come in. And then Vigus is that name is a local name, all over the place around Harford farming, Hartingford Bury, as well as still in the Rib Valley. And they had their first garden centre there, so the Vigus name may be useful. And then we were thinking of businesses in Benjo, like Onion, Onyon, modernish businesses, Roberts, Pickering, Pomfret, Poppleton.
So these are a lot of names that we're
Bryden, Walby.
throwing out. But if we wanted to pick our top 6, Councillor Ruffles,
Well, or do you want to look at head teachers? This is the other thing that I was obviously reliant very much on Marilyn Taylor. Because of the proximity to the new Benjo school, teachers in the old Benjo school's names were Hyatt, Johnson, Butterfield, Patey, and a lovely name for a teacher that I remember, Clues, Clues, Miss Ida Clues. She suggests them, but not Williams. Tilly Williams was well known for violence in the classroom, and not Mr. Nowak, who she says was all right with the girls.
but the boys struggled.
So of the modernish names, she doesn't think they. And then there's Major Woodhouse in Benjo Lodge, or Wedgwoods, who owned Benjo Lodge, that name. But it's an overall debate, isn't it? Where we go with it.
Indeed.
Are we completely ignoring the fact that it was a nursery? I mean,
Yeah.
or do we already have another nursery in the town? Can't think of anyone.
Nick, sorry, did you?
Actually, yeah, Chairman. Just looking at some of the names, I do know I've seen Unwin is a name seed, so I don't know if there's a link there to the nursery in terms of obviously Unwin seeds.
Unwin's in Clifton, they are, yes. I don't know whether they had any connection.
I just wonder whether it's related to the name somehow related to the nursery site, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it was Vigus's garden centre.
Yeah, so I think perhaps we Nick, just picking through some of that. Certainly, Vigus is a name that we would like to see used because that was the original garden centre on that site. Is that right?
Yes, I think it's the first business as a garden centre. But nursery, as Rob has said, just the word nursery, I think we haven't used. There's a
that's true.
I mean, Nursery Square sounds about right to me. But,
yeah.
Just I mean, there was a nursery there for quite a long time, wasn't there, Councillor Ruffles? So
yeah.
I think the use of the word nursery.
I love the idea, Chairman. I love the idea of there being somewhere in Hertford called Smearmongers Close.
Yes.
No,
I'm sure Councillor Ruffles can tell us what a smearmonger is.
Goodness knows, selling smears, but
something.
Are you saying, Councillor Pinkham, you don't know what a smear is?
I know exactly. I can imagine. I mean, I just think it's
Somebody knows.
a name. I can't.
Quite likely.
Developers would want smearmongers.
So just trying to move this one forward.
I have got what? It's related to forks, I think.
Forks.
Chairman. Yes. So I think you can purchase things like candles and fork candles and things like that.
Four candles.
Four candles, of
That's the
course.
two Ronnies.
Okay, let's just move along. We want to make sure we capture Wormold, Dr. Wormold, who
I love that one.
practiced in the area, and we were
Fearmonger
proposing
is
Wormold
not-
House, weren't we?
Yes.
We're not
Councillor
agreeing
Lynch
with
doesn't.
fearmonger, are we? No. It sounds something dirty.
That was the doctor's name, and he did a lot of good for the area.
Okay.
The idea we're looking, the developers will no doubt apply their own thoughts to this. Nick, I think it's worth also saying that whatever names they select,
Should be simple.
Hertford Museum would be interested in the provenance of or the background to the selection of names, as they keep a record of how streets are named in Hertford.
And maybe we should look at birds, the aviaries, as names.
Which one?
Birds.
Bird.
No, birds. Flying birds. Different names of birds. Robin, pigeon. No, there's
Oh,
loads.
okay. As opposed to ones with links to Bengio. I think the thinking was to find.
Yeah, we could still mix and match.
That's very true. Well, we've got Rook Square, but that was Mr. Rook, wasn't it?
Yes.
It's a great place for
Benjamin.
arts. It's a
Robin's Road jumps out as something sort of appealing.
Yeah. So, Nick, have you got a bit there to write up, and then perhaps
Yeah, Blackboard Close.
I'll tidy it up.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I have some a mixture of notes here, which are quite clear what has been agreed, to be honest. But yeah, if we could just sort of confirm the sort of favourite names. The other thing, just to note, obviously, is the site is next door to the town council's own allotment site. So there's again maybe an option for something related to that to consider. So as well.
Too many options, almost.
Yeah. Could I just suggest another one, which they have asked us quite straightforwardly to choose one of two on each occasion. Ought we just to go through that exercise and say which of their
I think Road 1 was a choice between Beauchamp and Field with an E on the end.
It's near Benjo. It's next to Benjo Field, isn't it? That we've now brought into the vocabulary of Benjo.
True. So perhaps we would favour Field Road, road number 1. Then Unwin Close was mentioned. Unwin, I think, was mentioned in your list, Councillor Ruffles. So would we?
Well,
or do we prefer Smearmongers?
Yes. Yeah. Let's go for Smearmongers.
Yeah, the poor. Think of the poor residents. Writing letters and.
Well, a developer normally, I mean, this is the extraordinary thing. A developer normally only has that interest in mind, and these are their nominations.
Yeah. Well, we'll go with Smearmongers. We've then got Beck or Shire. Beck Close or Shire Close.
We're not Shire. Oh, please. That's.
Well, then we go with Beck, don't we? Again, Nick, we're going to be asking where the derivation of these names has come from, or the provenance. Then we've got Rook Square. We're going to pick, I think, Councillor Lynch was looking for a feathered reference. Then we've got a choice between Shamrock, Shambrook, beg your pardon. Shan, is it Shan or Sham?
Sharnbrook.
Sharnbrook, Newell, or Skip Close?
Skip's a good Benjo name, Chairman. Barbara Skip died a bit back.
Skip is which name is?
Skip
is a good Benjo name.
It's a good Revels Road name.
I'm happy to go with Skip Close. I don't know how well that markets, but that's not our concern. They've offered us the choice, so we go with Skip Close then. And then was it Deeds Drive who were going to pick over Percival? I believe so. Deeds is another local name, Nick.
I think we would go for Wormold House.
And we were going for Wormold House.
Where does, jumping back, where does Cadwell's come from?
Where does
Cadwell's come from?
We're not sure.
They're not right. Okay.
They haven't sort of given us any history or background, which would sort of maybe assist us in making that selection. But
I like what trips to the tongue, although it's not particularly Benjo, is Blackbird Close as one that.
Yeah. No. I'm sure we'll have many other opportunities to name some streets. So Nick, those are the selections in terms of what they've asked us to comment on their list. And then I know that you've made quite a few notes. Just if you send me through a draft, and then I'll do some tidying up.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. So that was street naming. Back on the agenda now. Item 11. Any correspondence, Nick?
Chairman, no correspondence.
So no appeals or appeal decisions. And item 12. Any items for future agendas? No. So I think, Nick, we've done all our business, and bearing in mind we've got another meeting in 20 minutes,
Yeah.
I think we can declare this meeting closed.
You raced through it, Chairman.
Thank you for your